My name is William Porter, and this show is sponsored by Every Black Entrepreneurs Network. We're going to get started with a book lover's prayer. Let the pages be ever turning. Let the words run on and on. May my eyes be ever reading. May my imagination ever strong. Let my mind remain wide open to the discoveries within. May I never lose this passion for a story to begin. May the stories, they be plentiful. May I find my cozy nook to ever read and carry on the love of a good book. Our foundation scripture today comes from 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter and the 17th verse, and this is what it says. Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So I'd like to say happy holidays to everybody and Merry Christmas. This is our second meeting where we're focusing on the holiday season. Last month in November, we celebrated Thanksgiving, and this month we're celebrating Christmas. And we have a special inspirational book club today, as well as last time. And we have a new book discussion. And that book happens to be Life in the Spirit, True Stories of Blessings, Favor, and Intervention. And so what we're going to do shortly is discuss, last month in November, we discussed chapter 1 in this particular book, Nervous Drive. And today we're going to discuss chapter 3, Turn of Events. And this is just the first part of today's session. The second part, we're going to have an inspirational story. So at this time, I'd like to recognize participants, and especially the new participants who have not been here before. And are there any new people? And I think there are at least one that I was introduced to a little earlier, Kanita. Are you on, Kanita? If you could unmute yourself and you can go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kanita Kane, and I became introduced to Mr. Porter's daughter, Tanya, through my daughter's group, Divas, and I'm just glad to be here.
Okay, and where are you calling from?
I'm in Wake Forest. Wake
Forest? Okay. And I believe there are no other new people that I see, and so we could just go down the line and introduce each other very quickly. Just tell us your name and where you're calling from, and then we'll get into today's lesson. Starting with Verice, you're the first one that I see.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Verice Wooten, and I'm calling from Morrisville.
Okay, thank you. Kavita?
Hi, I am Kavita in Durham, North Carolina.
Great. And Sherwin?
Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I'm Sherwin Sharps. I'm calling from Raleigh.
Okay, great. And the next person I see on the screen is Yvonne.
I'm Yvonne Porter calling from Garner.
Okay, and Pamela?
I'm Pamela Porter calling from Raleigh.
And Ms. Jones.
Good evening, everybody. Pat Jones voiceover, calling from Raleigh, North Carolina. Glad to be here.
Okay, great having you, Ms. Jones, as usual. So is that everybody? I believe that's everybody. If I omitted someone, forgive my omitting you, but I think I have everybody. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our review, our discussion of the various points in the third chapter of the book, Life in the Spirit. And we'll be addressing questions as well. And the title of this particular chapter, chapter 3, is Turn of Events. And by the way, if you didn't get a copy of the book, I'll be glad to get you a copy of it. Just drop me an email and I can get you a copy of it. Okay, discussion point number 1, and it comes from page 42. And this is what it says. It was the first weekend of September festivals at the end of Main Street on the downtown plaza. But Al was totally unaware of the festivities. After parking a block away from where the festival events were taking place, Al began to walk towards the plaza. Because he seldom come downtown on weekends, he was surprised to see this special event going on. There were lots of people and several tents. This part of Main Street had been converted into a plaza where festivals would take place. And so the first question I'd like to ask everyone, and it involves festivals. And festivals are characterized by people having fun, dancing. There's a lot of music going on, food, and other activities. And I'd like you also to consider the very familiar 100th Psalm, which says, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing." And so our first question is this: do you think that participating in a festival like the one that Al in our story attended is an expression of the joyful noise talked about in the 100th Psalm? Anyone want to tackle that particular question at the very beginning? What do you think about that?
Always good. The Bible tells us in everything we do it heartily as to the Lord. So certainly you could worship the Lord in a setting like this. Let your joy come from him and from his spirit and not other spirits. You know, you don't have to celebrate the same way that the crowd does, but certainly you can give God thanks for all things at any time.
Okay, great. Anyone else with any opinions on that? Me and Yvonne attended a festival. Actually, we've attended, I think, a couple of festivals within the last month. A jazz festival a few weeks back, and we attended another festival. And of course, there was a lot of music and a lot of food, and there was a lot of fun. And I agree with you, Ms. Jones. I think you can make a joyful noise by celebrating and being glad of what God has presented to you. Mm-hmm. So, okay. In the Bible, I was researching a few days ago, and there are 123 festivals and feasts that are identified in the scripture. So it's something that is in the scripture, and it's, I believe, is something that we can have to assist our abundant life. And of course, this is what Jesus mentioned in the New Testament, our having an abundant life. So, and I understand that there are some different opinions on that as far as participating, quote unquote, in secular kind of activities. But we ought to have an abundant life, and certainly going to a festival is part of an abundant life. The second discussion point is this, and it comes from page 43 in the book, Life in the Spirit. And this is what it says. Shortly after entering the plaza where the International Festival was taking place, Al noticed a banner attached to a table where various pamphlets and brochures were being displayed. It was obvious that some college or university was being advertised and promoted. As he got closer to the tent, he saw that it was Southeast Community College. Being interested in having additional things to do in his recent retirement, he decided to come to the table and review the various materials being advertised. He soon would inquire about possible job opportunities at the school. Now, I want you to know that this story is basically describes how I met Yvonne, my wife. But what I want to ask everyone, do you remember a time when you met someone or had some experience for the first time and you ended up being blessed by the person or the experience? Who would want to answer that question? Put on your memory cap.
I'd like to answer that one.
Go ahead, Sherwin.
Okay. Back in 2014, I took a cruise, a solo cruise to the Caribbean, and it was a 7-day cruise. And my intention was to go on a cruise, relax, go to bed early, get up, walk, and just do a whole bunch of nothing. And when you travel solo, they'll put you at a table with other people traveling solo, and you'll basically stay at that table the whole time in terms of your dinner time meal. The group I was with was there was a nice group. And there was one woman sitting at the end, and I had noticed her, and she was talking to the man sitting next to her and so forth. But I didn't pay too much attention. I just kind of stayed by myself and ate and so forth. But the gentleman next to her was gregarious and outgoing. And the next day when I came up to eat, he says, "Listen, why don't you come over here and sit next to us," and so forth and so on. And I'm like, okay, whatever, So I sat next to them, and the woman and I, we began to click to some extent. And then, I'm ready to go back to the room and hang out and chill, but she wanted to because she hadn't been dancing in such a long time. And I said, okay, whatever, it's a cruise, just go ahead and go dancing. But one thing led to another, and we wound up having a relationship. That relationship lasted beyond the cruise. We had to end it in that sense the following year because the long distance relationship wasn't going to work. She lives in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm, of course, in Raleigh, North Carolina. But we remained friends to the point where we talk regularly. And she has blessed me just by, because of who she is and so forth. And I've gone down to visit her a couple of times. But that was, I remembered when I was reading this, that reminded me, because you had talked about that God, put you two together. And we were both convinced that, whether it be from a relationship standpoint or platonic, God definitely put us together because like I said, we're still good friends to this day.
That's a great story. Fairy tale type story. Anybody else? Anybody else before we move on? If not, we can move on to save as much time as we can. It is important for us to remember, especially the blessings that we may have received either not too long ago or maybe even a great time ago. It's important for us to remember. And I'm thinking of Psalm 78 chapter 40 through 42nd verse. And God wasn't pleased with the children of Israel back in the Old Testament because they did not remember. This is what it says: how often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Yes, again and again they tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. And then it goes on to say, they did not remember his power, the day when he redeemed them from the enemy. And of course, they were in captivity. So it's extremely important to remember our blessings, to remember what God has done for us. Discussion point number 3. It comes from page 45. While Evelyn was very reluctant to participate at school's promotional event, she did so at the constant urging by her coworkers. She did not know what life-changing situation she would encounter. She would later become Al's friend and life partner. Was it a mere coincidence that brought Al and Evelyn together at this event? The turn of events for both Al and Evelyn would start this weekend and continue for the next several weeks. This seemed like anything but coincidental. They both would later realize that God was at work bringing them together at this time. So, what I'd like to do now is to let you know that this setting was a part of the story based on the African American festival that takes place in Raleigh, downtown Raleigh, every year. Of course, last year we had COVID, so there was a modification of this particular festival. So, but at any rate, it takes place every weekend, the first weekend in September every year around Labor Day. And that's when we met. And this is the story. And so what I'd like to do now is to have Yvonne actually come and make a comment on the circumstances that led her to work for her school on this particular day. And she was at Wake Tech at the time. So Yvonne, do you want to touch on that? The reason why you came to work that day when we first met in the first place?
It's a good one. Well, that's
and I had mentioned this to you before, by the way.
And I gave you that look too, didn't I? But anyway, I was our vice president of the division. She was having a hard time getting anyone to work that particular festival. And she just kept sending out emails. And I was like, you know what? It's a holiday weekend, but she can't get anyone to fill those slots. So I'll go ahead and I'll volunteer. And I never, ever have I volunteered before, but I've never volunteered for a Saturday. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I'll go. And then she turned around and she was like, could you be the first one? I was like, oh my goodness, so it's pressure. So I went ahead and did something I normally wouldn't do and worked for the college that day. And like he said, he came to the table and I had gotten to a point in my life where I was like, you know, God, I've been picking the wrong people. I haven't allowed you to choose the man for me. So I'm going to turn it over to you. So if it's meant to be, it's going to have to be someone that's miraculous. I mean, it's just going to have to be someone that really, really, I know that you've sent him to me. You're going to give me some signs and I'm going to stop looking. I'm going to stop letting people pick a date for me, whatever. So that's how he came to the table. And I truly, like some people say, you hear the saying where you have just really stopped looking and you just allow God to work. And that's what I did. And he came to the table and shortly after we met or whatever, we went on a couple of dates. I was like, oh my goodness, is this the one? And I was like, God, you're speaking to me. And everything that I wished for, dreamed of, and prayed for came true. And here we are with dating and everything 12 years later together. And it's been a good journey. So I just sat there and I just waited for God. And I just took myself out of the equation. I had kissed enough frogs to know that I had been kissing frogs. So so that is the story of how we actually met. And it's just been a good journey. He's a good husband for the most part. No, I'm joking. That's it.
Thank you.
That's sweet. Sweet.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I knew you would come.
That's a nice story. That's a nice story.
It is. It is.
Thank you.
Now, the question though is, there are no coincidences for the believer. And I think that's what Yvonne, I believe, was saying. This was not a coincidence, but rather our coming together was orchestrated by God. And God orchestrates everything in our lives. And I guess some people might debate how small a thing God might orchestrate, but you might argue or put forth the opinion that he orchestrates everything. I mean, everything that happens to us, he orchestrates. And so as a result, there are no coincidences for the believer, just as Sherwin indicated a little bit earlier. So anyone have any comments on that? No one has any comments on that. Okay, we're going to move right along to conserve time then. Okay, and so what I'd like for you to do, however, and this is a question or comment/comment, describe the circumstances surrounding an event in your life that you believe was not coincidental, but had been orchestrated by God. And I think, Cheryl, when you mentioned one thing, I guess this would qualify. But is there anyone else who can think of something that was definitely not coincidental, but was orchestrated by God, some kind of experience that you may have had?
I can remember being on a job and it seemed like, I don't know, I wasn't appreciated the way I thought I should have been. And I came to work, I did my job. In fact, I helped other people with their work as well. And it seemed like when the good things came around, it would always bypass me and go to someone else. And I'm like, you know, why? I remember just turning my face to the wall one day and just talking to God about this thing. And I wanted to leave, but I said, you know, if you leave this job and it's not of God, you're going to get out of the frying pan into the fire. And so I told God, I said, you know, you open the doors. In fact, I want it to be so clear that you're speaking that they'll come and ask me, that I don't have to go look for the job, that they'll come get me when it's time. And not long after that, one of the attorneys that I was working with came to me and said, you know, we were playing ball the other day, and one of the attorneys mentioned that his legal assistant was leaving, and he was wondering, do we know anybody? And I thought about you, and I told him about you. And so here they were sending for me to come and work. And this is in the state attorney general's office. His legal counsel needed an assistant. And so I went and, you know, filled in for that person that had left. And I loved it. And he said, because I am a paralegal. And after a certain amount of time, he said, well, we're going to have to post this job. Do you want it? And I said, yes. And so I had to go through the whole process like everybody else to interview, but I was already trained in everything by the time the job was posted. So of course it came to me, but I thank God. And I remember getting in the elevator that day, going back to my regular spot that I worked, because I would go downstairs and fill in that vacancy. But I remember getting to the elevator and just turning my face to the wall and say, God, you did exactly the way I said. You know, I wasn't looking. You had them to come and get me to help out in that department. And we connected, and they actually hired me into that position. So I know that was God.
Okay, that is some story as well. Okay.
Well, I have something similar, not exactly like Pat, but the job that I'm doing now, I know it was God. Because in order to get into this company, you have to know someone. And I don't know anyone in the company. And I didn't learn that until after they hire me. But not only that, they pay for all the benefits and I work from home. So I know that was God's blessing. So I'm just so grateful.
Okay.
Oh.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? We're going to go ahead then, because, okay, this is the last point, by the way. It's on page 52 and 53. The Sunday prior to Thanksgiving, Al received a phone call from his brother-in-law, Ray, who lived in Cedar Rapids, Florida. Al was with his two daughters and Evelyn at a local restaurant at the time, having dinner together on Sunday evening. Ray called to let Al know that his sister, Janice, had a brief hospital stay and was now recuperating at home. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Al pondered the thought of staying home and going to Thanksgiving dinner with his daughters. He also had the option of traveling with Evelyn to have Thanksgiving at her brother's house. Al reasoned that he and Evelyn would stay overnight at her brother's house, then leave early the next morning to travel to Florida to see his sister, Janice. Now, this is a real circumstance in life. I had the option of either staying in the Raleigh-Durham area Thanksgiving about 11, 12 years ago, I guess, or going with Yvonne to her brother's house in Tennessee near Chattanooga, which we go on a regular basis now. But at that time, my sister-in-law actually called me the Sunday before Thanksgiving and to say that my brother was ill. And so she had never really called before. And so I believe that within itself was a miraculous kind of situation. But anyway, because of that, it led me to reconsider and travel with Yvonne, having just met her, with her to Tennessee from the Raleigh area instead of staying here. And so that kind of pushed things along as far as my relationship with Yvonne. And not only that, but I got to see my brother as well. And it turned out that the situation wasn't quite as serious as what my sister-in-law had thought it was, or at least the way I interpreted it. So things went well, and that kind of got things going as far as my relationship with Yvonne. So it was a real circumstance in my life. And so that's how that particular thing happened. And of course, eventually we were married. The question is that we've been discussing is the question of coincidences for the life of a believer. And I'm not going backwards here. And are there some situations where coincidences may enter the life of a believer, especially if a believer steps outside of the perfect will of God? So do you think that there may be situations where coincidences may come into play, especially in the life of a believer? What do you think about that? Anybody can answer that. Kind of jump in and give your opinion on that. Anybody? Or do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, nothing happens outside of God's knowledge and provision. He knows the way that we take. He knows what we will say, he knows what we think, even if we never say it. And there's nothing that takes him by surprise. He knows the decisions that we will make. We will be surprised ourselves, but God is not surprised. So as far as God is concerned, I don't think there are any coincidences. He knows everything about us. And so situations and results may surprise us, but I don't think they surprise God.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
I think everyone, not in terms of God, is always in controls and he's all knowing. I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 2014, and I met this couple on a Friday. And Saturday, I'm not really sure what happened, but I ended up in the hospital. And so that morning, all the doctors said they didn't know what it was and how long I was going to be in the hospital. And then the next day, they said, well, we've done all that we can, and we're releasing you. Well, not releasing me. I'm not in jail, right? Whatever the word is, in terms of
discharge.
Discharge. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Discharge on Monday afternoon. And amazingly, the couple that I met Friday evening, I for some reason got her phone number on Friday. I didn't know I would need it. So I called her and asked her, hey, can I stay with you? Because I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't know anybody there. They were the first couple that I met from there. And amazingly, they said, well, we don't have an extra room, but you're welcome to stay on the couch. And, that was the best offer. And so it was just amazing after all these years that I still, of course, we are still connected, but how God introduced me to a couple on a Friday, and Sunday I have to call for help, and Monday she picked me up from the hospital. So definitely praising God for that day or that weekend.
Okay, That is great. That is great. Okay. So I like to go back to our foundation scripture last time, and it says, let your conduct be without covetousness, be content with such things that you have. And then it goes on to say, for he himself said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So as far as coincidences are concerned, I think he's always with us if you're a believer. And it's although I guess we can get outside of his will occasionally, but somehow it's kind of like a GPS. You know, when you make the wrong turn, somehow it brings you back to where you're supposed to be. So anyway, that is my take on that. So now we have an inspirational story.
I try to say something meaningful to people. And I'm in the laugh business. That's my gift. That's what God gave me at birth. Your gift is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. I want to tell you something that can help enrich your life. It's a sure sign from God that he ain't through with you because he wakes you up in the morning. When he's done, you won't wake up no more. But as long as you're waking up, that means he has something for you that he hasn't been able to give to you for whatever the reason. I'm going to help you get to that reason a little bit quicker. I want to tell you something that I learned that changed my life. I was reading a book one time that had a quote in there from Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein said, imagination is everything. It's the preview to life's coming attractions. If you think about that, that's a really, really true statement. Because everything you see in this world came from somebody's imagination. Everything. Somebody was talking on the phone one day, on that wall phone, connected to the cord, and tried to walk, and it didn't go no further. And he wanted to just go outside and get something out the car. Somebody said, you know what? I wish I could take this phone outside. Everybody in here got a cell phone. It was in somebody's imagination. Somebody imagined that. Somebody imagined everything. Somebody got tired of walking. Somebody got tired of driving cars. Somebody said, we're gonna fly. You're not finna fly. Everybody in here done been on a plane. See, your imagination is the evidence of things not seen. You know why they call it the evidence of things not seen? Your imagination, you the only one can see it. You're the only one can see it. See, so all this stuff you've been imagining was not some hocus pocus. When you imagine stuff, it's actually God showing you a preview of a coming attraction he has for you. That's what your imagination is. Why do you keep imagining yourself with a second home? Because God wants you to have a second home. Why do you keep imagining yourself in a supervisory capacity on another job? Because God really wants you to have that. Why you keep dreaming of opening a business one day? That's because that's what God really got for you. And he put it in your imagination. The problem with your imagination, though, is you tell it to the wrong people. If you want to kill a big dream, tell it to a small-minded person. You can't, oh man. Think about this in your life. How many times have you had this really incredible idea and you took it to your family and your friends? You shared it with them and they shot it down. You know why they shot it down? Because they couldn't see it. Because God didn't put it in their imagination, he put it in yours. It was your evidence of things not seen. See, all this stuff you've been imagining, you ought to start working on it. Because that's what God really got for you. Your real life is in your imagination. I'm here to tell you that. You think I'm here by accident? I'm here because he put this in my imagination when I was 10. When I was 10, he showed me I was gonna be on TV. That's all I ever wanted. The assignment when I was in the 6th grade was everybody write their name on a piece of paper and write what you want to be. You know what I wrote on my paper? I want to be on TV. Now, the problem I had, though, was I used to suffer with a serious stuttering problem. I couldn't talk outside my house. I stuttered for years. I flunked out of school. I'm on my 3rd marriage. I lost everything I ever owned twice. I've been homeless and lived in a car for 3 years. But at 10, though, I wrote on a piece of paper, I want to be on TV. So the teacher went around the room and read everybody's paper. Had you stand up when she called your name, and the only assignment was your name and what you want to be. Doctor, lawyer, dentist, basketball player, football player. I wrote I want to be on TV. She saved me for last. She said, "Little Stevie, come to the front." Now I'm thinking, I'm going to the front because I got the best answer. Because ain't nobody had put that on their paper. She called me to the front. I'm thinking I'm finna give me a gold star, but I was wrong about that. She called me to the front to humiliate me. First of all, you know I can't talk. I suffered with stuttering stammer so bad, man. I couldn't talk at all. And that lady lit in on me. "Why did you write this on your paper?" Now I'm standing there, I can't talk. Who in this school ever been on TV? Who in your family ever been on TV? Who in this neighborhood ever been on TV? I'm crushing, man. I'm standing there dying. She said, "Look at you standing there. You can't even talk. How they gonna put somebody like you on TV?" So every Christmas, I send her a flat screen TV. Because I don't want her to miss me. I do not want her to miss not an episode of me. Because I wanted her to see what God had done for me. The fact that you couldn't see it, it wasn't for you to see. He put it in my imagination. But after 3 years of homelessness, losing everything I ever owned twice, suffering through flunking out of school, go home and cut your TV on. That little boy with the stuttering problem, he all over that TV. You can't cut your TV on. You can't cut your TV on not a day of the week and you don't see that little boy. That little boy with the stuttering problem is all over that TV because God put it in my imagination. All I did was hang on to that thought. I just kept hoping. I just kept hoping that what I had wrote on the paper would come true. A lot of times it wasn't about no faith. I didn't believe it sometimes. When you homeless and living in a car, how you see yourself as a TV star? But I just kept hanging on there. Because my mama was a Sunday school teacher. I kept hearing her say, God didn't bring you this far to leave you. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. Why do you think he keeps waking you up? Because he got more for you. He got way more for you. He got plans for you. But he needs your faith. He just needs you to call on him. He needs you to dust off your imagination and just go for it. You got to try. Quit waking up thinking you ain't got no say-so in your life. You have a choice in this matter. You can't stop what happened to you, but you can doggone sure do something about what happened to you. Life is 10% what happened to you, is 90% what you do about it. Somebody in your family gonna die. Somebody in here gonna get fired. Somebody here gonna get an eviction notice. Somebody gonna get laid off. Somebody company gonna close. That's life. Somebody you love gonna break up with you. That's life. But what you gonna do about it though? Since it's gonna happen anyway. Trust me, go home and ask God to open up your imagination and then pursue it with everything in you and watch what he do for you. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about imagination. And just, by the way, did you all hear that?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Because, well, anyway, I won't address that anymore. But anyway, you heard it. Okay. What do you think about this? If you can imagine it, you can have it. Basically, that's what Steve Harvey was saying. If you can place it in your imagination, then eventually you can have it. What do you think about that? Anybody want to make a comment on that? No, when I was small, I guess I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I didn't have a stuttering problem, but I did have a problem getting up, speaking in front of people. I mean, I was terrorized about getting up, speaking in a large crowd, and got nervous and all that. And also I had some other issues going on. But anyway, what I had in my mind, in my imagination, was me standing in front of a classroom teaching with a necktie on. And I'm a product of the old school. I won't tell you how old, but I remember when public school teachers, the men at least, wore neckties and white shirts and whatnot. So anyway, I pictured myself standing in front of the class teaching with a necktie and a white shirt on. This was about 5, 6 years old. And of course, eventually it came to pass. I went to college, graduate school. But the point is that I imagined that early on without a whole lot of evidence of that ever going to take place at that particular time, or at least in the future. But I held on to it, and it came to pass. So anyway, anyone have any ideas on that? And by the way, before anyone answers, it really has reference to Mark 11:23. And I'll just read it to you. For assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. So you have to believe whatever you're thinking about in your mind. You have to believe it. You have to believe that at some point it will come to pass, even though you might not know how it's going to come to pass. So anyway, I'll throw it back at you all. Anybody have any comments on that?
You know, the Bible also tells us to delight ourselves in the Lord, and he will give us the desires of our heart. And so when we delight ourselves in the Lord, he many times will purify our desires. Sometimes we desire things that might not be best for us. And as we delight ourselves in him, he gives us his wisdom and insight on things. And so it's always good to, whatever we desire, to bring it before God and make sure that that's his will. But I do believe that he puts things in our hearts and our minds that he has made us, we're bent in that direction, we're molded for certain things. And those things tend to appeal to us. And sometimes we might try to go a different direction. I know many students, if their father was a dentist, then they feel like they should be in the dentist or at least in the medical field or whatever, but God has another plan. And a person might go that way and be miserable because that's not what God has for them. So he knows the desires in our heart. He will give us some of the things that we desire. I don't think everything, because everything we desire might not be in our best interest. We can pray and ask God for things sometimes that are not his will. And we may get them, but it'll end up being a leanness to our soul that we won't be able to be happy with it. But I thank God that his word tells us the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. Now, rich doesn't necessarily mean money, but I believe it means happy and satisfied and contentment. So thanks be to God that he does put desires in our hearts. Sometimes it might frighten us, like you were saying about being a teacher or whatever. Could that be me? Could that ever be me? But when we give those desires to the Lord, and he knows what he has shaped us for, and sometimes, the fulfilling of that is hindered by our fears or the words of others, as Steve Harvey was saying. But God will do what he has set out to do if we will seek his will and his face. He will lead and guide us into the ways of truth, and we can be happy in Jesus. Okay,
good. Okay, we're going to go right into our testimonies. And actually, we've already had some testimonies. But does anyone have anything in particular that they want to share with the group that may have happened to you over the last several weeks, or maybe even further back, that would qualify as a testimony, something that was miraculous or at least unusual? Anybody? Let me say this, since no one is coming immediately. I know some of you will come on board and say something regarding God being involved, because he has. But anyway, it doesn't have to be anything large, by the way. It was amazing that earlier this week, usually we have a good supply of oatmeal This is very simple. There's a good supply of oatmeal, but this particular day I went to the cabinet and saw that I didn't have any oatmeal in the morning, and usually I have a big bowl of oatmeal, and it was only about a half of a bowl, and I was very frustrated, but I went ahead and did the half bowl of oatmeal, and thought that I would be half satisfied, but actually I was totally satisfied because I remembered that really what I've been wanting to do the last several weeks was to reduce my portions. And that was a good opportunity for me to reduce my portions as far as oatmeal is concerned. So I feel that was something that God kind of communicated to me via the fact that I didn't have the oatmeal that I thought I wanted. But ultimately, I got what I really wanted. That was a reduced portion of oatmeal, a half a bowl in the morning instead of a full bowl in the morning. So anyway, I felt that was definitely.
Were you satisfied?
Very satisfied. I found out that I really didn't need a full bowl. I really only needed a half bowl. But it took the fact that we gave out of oatmeal for me for God to bring that to my awareness. So anyway, that's one thing. Anyone else?
I think I can chime in on this one.
Sure.
A few weeks ago, I got a letter in the mail. Actually, it was a check. And it was from a finance company. And over the past couple of years, you get these letters every so often with a check from a finance company, and they want you to cash it so you can owe them some money. That's what I thought it was, but I looked at the amount. It was an odd amount, $851 and certain cents. And there was a letter attached to it. And as I read the letter, then I understood why I got the check. This past May, I think it was, or April, I refinanced my car. Went from the finance company to the credit union. And of course, the car had to be paid off, and then the credit union took up the financing. Well, they sent me the check saying because the car was paid off and this, that, and the other, here's a refund check for $800. So I was not expecting that at all. That's my little miracle. So I was very happy.
Yeah.
That's a nice surprise and blessing, I might add. Anyone else?
It is.
I have a testimony. If you
Go
can
ahead,
hear
Paul.
me okay. Hopefully the train won't, and I'll try to make it short because it is a little kind of long, but I have an organization where we did a floral project where we gifted seniors with flower arrangements for Thanksgiving. And before the project, I went to a florist, I'm not going to say the name, and asked for their donations since they gave me donations last year. So I called, I emailed, got no response. I would walk into the florist like on the third time, and the receptionist like, oh, she's here again, doesn't she get it? We're not going to donate to her. Okay, but I was persistent because I was excited about the project. Anyway, the project took place. I got donations from a couple of other organizations, and that was a blessing in itself. But in fact, one of the two organizations that donated flowers was a very popular and prominent organization. And so that's a blessing in itself. But do you know that organization just last week had an overflow of flowers? So this is Project Over Thanksgiving. That organization had an overabundance of flowers. And they asked me if I could go to the florist that I originally went to pick up flowers on their behalf. So I know it's kind of hard to follow, but the florist I initially asked if they could donate flowers to me, and basically they brushed me off. This other big time organization said, look, we have an abundance of flowers. We love the work that you did. We love working with you. We just have too many flowers at this florist A that I tried to get flowers from before. Could you go to that florist and pick up these flowers from us? So in my head, I'm like, of course I will. Of course, yes. So when I walked into florist A that didn't donate before, it was the same receptionist looking at me like, oh, she really doesn't get it. She's back again. I said, well, I'm here to pick up flowers for this other organization to help me out. And she says, oh, okay, we have a whole cart full of flowers for you over here to the right. So basically, God kind of turned it around full circle, where that florist ended up having to give me flowers through the other organization when initially they rejected me. So I think about the scripture about the cornerstone that was rejected. You got that scripture. You got the least of these, the last will be first. So obviously, the more popular organization in their eyes was more of a valuable to them and was worth donating to. So I prayed to not rub it in their face, but I wanted to say, see, I got my flowers anyway, even though you wouldn't let me in the beginning. But I hope y'all could follow the story. That's a big deal for me.
Well, all of us have testimonies, and each one of us, the testimony is personal to us, and sometimes it's kind of difficult to express it to someone else. But you know how God has blessed you, and that's the important thing. Yeah. And so anyway, thanks a lot, Panya. That was very interesting and very miraculous, actually. Yeah, go ahead.
You didn't give up. That's right.
Okay, well, anyway, we're close to the end, and so we're going to be back in just a second, and we're going to close things out. Hold on a second. I was going to ask the question, what does Christmas mean to you? And we all know that it's Jesus' birthday, and we need to keep Jesus in Christmas. And then I wanted to, and you can just think about this, because we don't really have time for everybody to chime in, but what do you want for Christmas? So think about it, and tell the person that might be in charge of getting you whatever you might think you will get from that person, what you really want. I don't know how you go about that, but anyway, it is that time of year, and so hopefully everyone will get what they want for Christmas. Okay, our next meeting is January the 8th. Now, this is the second Saturday in January, because the first Saturday in January actually is on New Year's Day weekend. And so we're going to have our meeting in January on the second Saturday of the month, which is the 8th. And at that time, we're going to go back. We're going to return to discussions of the book, Heaven Can't Wait, or Can It, the sequel. And let me tell you, there's some really interesting stories that you will be encountering when we get back in January and the months beyond. But we will be going back to Heaven Can't Wait, or Can It, the sequel, to see what Maggie has gotten herself into and out of. Also, I have a new book coming out, For Heaven's Sake, The Dreams Continue. I got a word from my publisher the other day, and he's already put in an order. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a winter signing February, the first Saturday in February, and I think that's the 5th. I'm not sure exactly the date. But anyway, for members of the book club, if you really want a copy, and I believe I will get copies before Christmas, just let me know, send me your mailing address, and I can get you a copy. And by the way, the book retails for $14.99, and it's a continuation of the series of novels that I've written. And of course, now we're in the second novel in this series. So just let me know. Make sure you let me know if you want a copy for Christmas, before Christmas. If not, I'll let you know about the first book signing, the first of the year in February, the first Saturday in February. Okay, so if you know anybody who would like to join us, just let them know. Give them my email address, waporter4995@yahoo.com, and I will gladly get them a Zoom ID and passcode. And my website is williamporterlife.com. Feel free to go there. And also, these are the book club credits. A number of people were and continue to be important as far as the production of this particular book club. Okay, thank you very much for being here tonight and today. And again, if you are going through something that's bad, especially, or even if it's good, just keep in mind that there's always more good things coming your way.